Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Listen Up Podcast, brought to you by Abacare Recovery. Today we've got James Docherty on the show. Hi James, how are you?
All right, Eddie, I'm good. You?
Yeah, all good. Good to have you.
Good man.
So James is a person in recovery who works in the prevention field. James is an advocate for raising awareness on how to address the cost of adverse childhood trauma. So we're going to speak about a few topics today, James. We're going to look at your own recovery journey. We're going to look at ACEs as we spoke about as well, but we're really going to look into recovery models as well.
Yeah.
And then we'll look at kind of rehab and the benefits of rehab and maybe a wee bit about your own experience of going to rehab. How does that sound?
Okay, perfect.
So James, what brought you into recovery in the first place?
The pain of remaining the same became too much, and I knew I had to do something different. But I didn't know there was recovery was available to me, Eddie, and it happened through the medium of example, which I know now. I just didn't know that at the time. My cousin had went into rehab and came out of rehab and came to my house to visit me, and I just looked at him and I knew he was different. So I had obviously knew him when he was in his own addiction.
Yeah.
And just the difference in him, just the way he spoke, the light was on behind his eyes. And that became something that I wanted. I looked at him and thought, that's for me. Little did I know how much work was involved in getting to where he was at, but he was like an element of a guide and an example. And for me, that's the foundation of recovery is it's relationships. At the end of the day, it's the person's facilitating hope. And for me, I think, not just for me, for the amount of people I've listened to over the years, that addicts or people living in adversity, because that's what it is, it's adversity.
Yep.
Active addiction's adversity. They need hope of victory of their circumstances, and the hope's got to be better than the defeat of active addiction. And that happens through the conduit of relationships.
So you spoke, James, about it was your cousin that you seen that. How easy is it to make that transformation for seeing somebody there that's an example to you and getting that, I want a bit of that, to actually get into that place? What's that process look like?
So that was 20 years ago,
Okay.
Eddie, and I know for a fact that it's harder today than it was 20 years ago to access the treatment that I got.
Yeah.
And even back then, it was arduous, and and I know people get lost or disheartened on the journey. They just give up and say, what's the point?
Yeah.
People don't want to help me, but I was fortunate enough to meet a worker who believed in my sincerity, that I was what I turn my life around, and he helped me get funding to go to residential.
Okay.
But it was difficult, Eddie. And if it wasn't for that process, I've no doubt in my mind that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as I am now.
Yeah. And is that, do you think that's still going to be the way where if your worker's a good person, has an interest in you, you get an opportunity, but there might be other people who don't get that opportunity because they never got that right person?
Aye, no doubt in my mind. Obviously, if the system isn't set up to facilitate that as well, then the worker couldn't transmit a practice to you that isn't part of their model.
Yeah.
So right off the front end, it would be a pointless exercise. And that's the difficulty with accessing addiction recovery as I know it, because when I was so no well, Eddie, that it was, and I know me, and I lived it, and I'm the best person to have oversight on the condition I was in. It doesn't matter who's outside it, with a perspective on it. I was mentally, emotionally and physically gravely ill. Like, when I went into treatment, I weighed 50 kilo, Eddie. 50 kilo. I'm like 75 kilo now, so I'm 25 kilos under the weight I'm all now. I was decimated with the way I was living. And that's just physically looking at me. Like the mental, emotional and torments that I was living in was stuff that I would discover later on once I was sufficiently detoxed. But that had to happen in a safe environment with people who are medically trained and professionals who are skilled enough and people with lived experience, and it's all underpinned by compassionate support who understand my plight. Because the theme song, my theme song was you don't know what it's like to be me. And when you meet people that know your story because it's their story, it cuts through that feeling of difference that dominates somebody who's got unresolved trauma, or even the trauma of chemical dependence. Eddie, that's another trauma that nobody talks about, really. Like, when you've been chemically dependent for so long, it traumatises your system.
I heard that saying one day, you know, if you didn't grow up with kind of childhood trauma and stuff and you get into addiction, you're going to get your trauma from the way you live and the situations you're in addiction and what you do to yourself.
And even the chemical trauma, the substances that you're taking, the impact it has on you physiologically, emotionally, at a biological, cellular level. Even the detox process is traumatic on its own. And that's why I'm a fan of good treatment, because you need that community of support around you and medical support. You need good doctors and nurses, and it's a real community effort to return somebody to themselves.
So if you want to speak a wee bit about that, James, you know, coming for that place, an active addiction, you spoke there about the physical and mental and emotional state you're in, then you land in a rehab. What was your experience like turning up there?
Terrified, but can't tell anybody. So I've been overcompensating all my life, and so it's just, I've got all these ego defences, and I've no idea I've got them. And I'm terrified, but at the same time I'm intrigued, and I know I'm in the right place, and I know it's a safe place as well. Just the nature of the support and how you're welcomed, but I also know that the staff, the people who occupy the place, you can't kid a kidder with them. They just know. Do you know that way? And I've been in lots of institutions, Eddie, and I mean lots of them. If I was a child, I was subject to so many systems, all the way through to that type of system, which is a recovery system I'm in. And none of the other systems were able to break down and transfer to me a full knowledge of what actually might be going on with me that was understandable to me. And that's not a slight on these other systems, because these other systems are trying their best with the training they've got and their understanding at the time, and working to their own remit. But when I went in there, I got a full knowledge of what was actually going on. And it blew my mind, Eddie.
What does that feel like when finally, like you spoke there, you've been through institutions and systems and services for all the years, to finally find out that people maybe have an understanding of what the problem is?
Well, it's cathartic in its own right, because even that, it's like, finally I can hang my jacket on this. It's like there's a peg there to actually hang the jacket, whereas before that there was nothing to hang it on. It just kept falling to the flare. That's probably the best metaphor I can describe it. I was just coming up short all the time, and then eventually these people describing to me what addiction was what was underpinning it, what type of support I'm going to need to make this journey a healing and recovery journey, and the sense of no longer being alone in it. Because I was tortured with loneliness, Eddie. I remember sitting in Parkhead at a football game, 60-odd thousand fans, and I felt like the loneliest guy in the park. Like, I couldn't even turn to the person next to me who was a family member and tell them how I felt.
Aye.
It's a loneliness that very few know. But when you speak to people in recovery who've experienced it, you just get it. It's like an unspoken, it's annoying.
Yeah.
I get that. And when you've been operating in that type of loneliness, and then you cut through that in the type of recovery that I was able to access, that in its own right is enough to move you to a different place.
Yeah. So you spoke there about turning up at this place, and it's something maybe we don't kind of say often enough, and obviously we've got a kind of lot of viewers on these podcasts who may be struggling themselves at this time and feeling that loneliness you're speaking about and stuff. What did you find out there and over the years that you've been in recovery, James? What did you find out? What is addiction?
So we used to get different workshops and lectures. So we got a lecture on the illness concept of addiction, which came from a doctor called Dr. Silkworth. And Dr. Silkworth is in the big book Alcoholics Anonymous, and he was a doctor who was working in a hospital in America in the 1930s called Towns Hospital, and he'd worked with thousands of alcoholics and drug addicts. And what he discovered was that there were certain types of drinkers and drug users who were bodily and mentally different from other drug users that came into his hospital. He noticed that some people could be sufficiently detoxed and they could go back out and they could return to controlled drink, etc.
Okay.
And then there was a certain type that just couldn't pull that off, and they kept returning to the hospital. And he came up with the theory that alcoholics and addicts of this type had a compulsion that compelled them to drink more once they started. But once they get stopped, they had a mind that told them that they could start again.
Yeah.
And that was a baffling feature of alcoholism, as he described it. And when I'm getting this lecture in this rehab, I'm sitting thinking, I've got that. And I didn't realise it didn't matter what substance it was the first substance that set the biological process in motion. They said it was biological. And nobody's going to give me information, Eddie, just because they're an expert on a particular topic. Because if it doesn't relate to my own personal experience, or it doesn't make sense to me, I ain't going to buy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for most people who have got the condition as I've got it, because I know that everybody that takes drugs or who ends up drug dependent hasn't got the same thing that I've got. Because I know people who have been drug dependent have managed to stop it, and they're out there holding down jobs and they're able to do controlled drink, etc. And there was nothing in my lived experience when I examined it, because that's the beauty of that type of information, that knowledge base, when they're letting you know about it and where it came from. It allows you to make sense of your own lived experience. So they're not telling me this is what's up.
Yeah.
It's the same as if, and for me it was really powerful, Eddie, because it was convincing diagnosis. It was coming from a doctor. It wasn't coming from just, oh, we decided one day to frame this as an illness. It wasn't Alcoholics Anonymous that framed alcoholism as an illness. It was Dr. Silkworth.
Yeah.
And that's massively misunderstood, that it was a doctor who came up with this diagnosis. It wasn't two alcoholics sitting in a room that said, let's call it an illness and we'll put this information around it to help people make sense of it. What AA came up with, for example, was the solution to staying free for acting at that mental part of the condition, because they call it a mental obsession.
Yeah.
And for me, Eddie, the mental obsession is just the ability to believe a lie.
Mm.
And the lie is about control.
Yeah.
I'll be able to control this. And my experience is that prior to going to treatment, I had tried to stop on numerous occasions, and I had managed to get stopped through different types of interventions. For example, going to prison was a type of harm reduction
Yeah.
that was getting put into my life before I even realised that that was a harm reduction practice. So at that time, if you went to prison, you can't get access to alcohol, so you had to detox. So I would be in prison, I would be as physically sober in there as I'm are right now.
Yep.
And I would leave, and my mind would convince me to drink again. For a state of sobriety, I would make a decision that it's all right, just don't drink spirits. If you don't drink spirits, you'll be all right, James. Try beer. Try just drink beer. But I had no idea that it didn't matter
Yeah.
whether it was a beer
Because of
or a
that
spirit,
first one.
because it was the first one that set the cycle in motion. I had no idea. Eddie, see, finding that out, I was like, I've got that. Because I remember, even as far back as 17 years old, in a young offenders institution, Long Regend it was called, I was on remand for a drink-related crime. And I was like, why do I keep coming to these places? What is wrong with me? And I was baffled. I was just a baffled lot. Which most folk who are trying to access recovery are, you're just baffled. And for me, getting that information, Eddie, was life-changing.
So, James, you spoke there about Dr. Silkworth coming up with that kind of method, 1939, is
30s.
that? In the 30s. And I take it you're in prison, 1990s, etc. and stuff. Why is that information not passed on into kind of places like prisons or services or whatever? Why do you think that hasn't fed through to people? Surely that would help systems and, you know, if people got help and got that information.
Do you know, Eddie, I've tried to understand why it isn't readily available to people. I think a big part of it is the people who are in charge of setting up systems, who design systems, etc. They don't get exposed to that type of information, or they wouldn't necessarily be leaning in to that type of teaching in their practice. So, like, for example, prison officers wouldn't be taught about this.
Yeah.
So how can you transmit something that you've not been taught? And that's not the fault of the system, because it becomes a training issue. Yeah. And also the infrastructure of a prison system isn't set up to support somebody who does need that type of abstinence and type of recovery, which is abstinence. I need an abstinence-based recovery model because of the physical part of this condition, because my experience has told me that every time I pick up, there's a massive loss of control. My life becomes a living hell again. Yeah. And if you don't understand that as a illness or an aspect to the illness, then you're only going to apply the solution to it. And that's not the fault. Like the prison system, for example, because they just don't know what they don't know. Yeah.
So following on for the kind of development, so that became what was known as Alcoholics Anonymous, with that kind of philosophy and stuff. How did you start to practice that? What's the kind of first areas you look at when you're in rehab or you're at fellowship meetings and stuff during that time? What's the first kind of bit of work you done on yourself regarding that?
First of all, it was the detox process. I had to be sufficiently detoxed so that other psychological measures, like the types of support I got after that, would be effective, because I don't think they would have even landed if I was left under the influence. And for me, it was the lectures and on what they call step one. What is the illness of addiction? What's its various manifestations? But it was the first aspect that got me, Eddie. Like, folk in recovery have got brilliant ways of explaining the physical part of the illness. There was a guy I heard once who said, he says that when you go to the petrol station and you put the petrol nozzle into the tank, he says the nozzle's got a clicker on it. It's a sensor to let it know that the tank's full, so that petrol doesn't spill it onto the forecourt. And he went like that, I've not got a clicker. That's what he says. I don't know when my tank's full.
Brilliant.
And I was like, what a simple way to explain the physical part of this condition.
Yeah.
And see, knowing that, Eddie, knowing that there's a physical aspect to this condition and that every time I pick up, I activate it. So the challenge becomes, how do I not pick up? Because then it looks like a choice after that.
Yeah.
And there is an element of choice in it once you're sufficiently physically detoxed. But the tragedy for the addict is, or the alcoholic, is that after a period of time they can convince themselves that it wasn't that bad. Or, for example, you're under massive amounts of stress. Like you're in recovery, you fell out with your partner, or you've got unresolved trauma, all this stuff's coming up, you don't know what to do with it, or how to process it, or how to pack it away. And the mind just does that to you. You know what fixes this.
Yeah.
Like, you can't go on living like this.
And it's a human condition though, James, isn't it?
Aye.
See, when you're feeling that, and you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling stressed, all human beings try and find comfort, don't they?
100%.
You know, it's the
Aye.
most natural thing to do, but what I get taught early on in recovery is, but the area that you go to try and comfort, that's going to kill you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
And and that's the challenge, Eddie, is how do you find a sufficient substitute that gives you ease and comfort, that can help you emotionally regulate and get real balance in your life, so that you don't default back to go looking for it, what you were getting at the substance.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what the 12-step programme done. It gave me a framework for how to live free of the idea. Because the idea smashed, Eddie. I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. They says, do you ever think about drinking or taking substances? And I'm like, no, absolutely. I'm like, what do you know? Because there's this school of thought out there that think because you're in recovery that you're this fragile human being going through life and you can't go there and you can't do this. And I'm like, I was taught a model of recovery, Eddie, that said I can do anything that any other human being does on this planet. I can go to events, I can go to places where alcohol's served. And obviously in the early days when you're trying to get stability and recovery, you avoid that and you trust the guidance you're getting. But once you're solid in your recovery, Eddie, and you've got that balance in your life, you can go anywhere that free men go. And why would you not want a type of recovery like that?
Totally, James, because it's a kind of societal thing, you know. Like I speak to maybe people from knew me in my past and stuff, and they still kind of give you the slogans like, I know it's a battle every day for you and stuff, and you're just like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
I'm no battling.
Yeah, but there's an area in there that we know about and what works in recovery and the programme and steps and stuff, but it's not filtering through to people, you know. But and they're maybe still speaking what you spoke about earlier before you came into recovery, where you could stop at times, but the head was still telling you could maybe give a go.
I couldn't stay stopped because I still had the mind of an untreated addict, Eddie. And that's what the 12-step programme's designed to do, to expel the obsession of the mind. That's its job. If you work the 12 steps, it'll expel it. It's not even a thing. And you can begin through, because life's going to happen to you whether you like it or not. You'll have your mental health struggles like most human beings. You'll have breakdown in relationships, you'll have differences with your employers, you'll have ill health, you'll have bereavement, and you'll experience all this stuff. And the idea of drinking to cope with it or get through it won't crowd into your mind, because that's how effective that practice and process is. If you're practicing it, Eddie, because it is a practice.
Yeah.
it isn't an academic exercise where you go through the 12-step programme and you say, that's me graduated, I've done the 12-step programme. It doesn't work that way. It needs to be a way of life where it just becomes embodied. And a lot of people don't know that or know how to teach people it, because that's the thing about like even sponsoring folk in recovery. Like my job as a sponsor isn't to create dependence. It's one of the first things I get people to write. This process isn't to make me dependent on a sponsor.
So just for anybody listening, James, that doesn't know, so there's suggestions in a fellowship, isn't there, whether you go A, NA or CA, where you find yourself a sponsor. So that's somebody that's further on in the recovery, got a bit of time at abstinence-based recovery, and they've already went through a 12-step programme with their sponsor.
Yep. So it's somebody who's got a working knowledge of the 12-step programme, and their job is to teach you how to teach it to other people.
Yeah.
And that's the framework, that's the toolkit that will allow you to sustain abstinence for the rest of your life. And I think it's remarkable in its simplicity, because once you know it, like it took me a while, Eddie, to realise I know exactly what I'm doing now in 12-step recovery. I'm only winging it. I'm only trying to sound good or trying to impress. It's basically, I know what the practice and process in here is to have an experience with recovery that can recreate your whole life. And the beauty of it is you're on a journey with lots of other people that are doing it. And that's key as well, because it's all relational, Eddie. And I say it all the time, even out there in my professional life and my work, I talk about how relational wealth is a solution to adversity. And by that I'm meaning all the evidence shows that for the resilience research, trauma research, desistance for crime research, and the recovery research, every single bit of it points in to this unanimous fact that the more healthy relationships you surround yourself with, the better the outcomes. It's about the dose response of relationships. So if you're surrounding yourself with people who are just as healthy as you, or healthier than you, then the contagious social contagion for that will open you up to areas of your life that you wouldn't even know were available to you if you were still sitting in a crack den smoking crack, or sitting smoking heroin, or sitting in the pub, or sitting in the house drinking a bottle of vodka. And that's the beauty of recovery, Eddie, because it's basically lots of people who wouldn't normally mix. You meet people from all different social, economic backgrounds, and your exposure to the types of relationships opens up your life to other areas that you can go and explore. I think it's remarkable. And the reason I'm so vocal about it, Eddie, and why I've came on this podcast, is because there isn't another model out there in our society that mirrors that. So for me, the 12-step model's the best that's out there. And until we come up with a better one, then we need to work with the one we've got. And I'm still looking for a better one. And I'm open to it.
Same.
I'm open to a better one. If they show me a better model of recovery, it takes somebody who's totally burnt their life to the ground, been living in trauma for they were a wee boy, the way I was, who had experienced every system that can get a hold of somebody, who came into recovery utterly wounded, full of shame and disgrace for the way he'd been living, and gave me a course of action to take that I participated in, which was all relational. And it helped me recreate my life and get me to the person I'm all the day, and the father I'm all the day. Because that's important, Eddie. If you can show me another model that's doing that, I'm open to seeing it. I've just not seen it yet, Eddie. And that's a tragedy, because people deserve recovery, Eddie. Human beings who have been downtrodden, traumatised, totally socially excluded by society. There's no getting away from it, Eddie. Drug addicts and alcoholics are the modern day lepers in our society. They're demonised, mate. They're judged. They're told they're making bad choices. They aren't willing. society doesn't understand how unwell they are.
Yeah.
And that's a fault at the larger systems who educate society on this stuff,
Totally.
because they know the evidence base on this, and if they aren't getting this education out there mainstream, and it's been one of my frustrations for a long, long time, is just listening to some of the rhetoric out there and some of the views on what addiction is, what it isn't, and there's just like...
And that's the main reason we do this stuff, James, you know, to get that out there, because we got an understanding of what's going on behind that, you know, because society looks at the addict, the alcoholic in the street, and they compare themselves to them, you know. Human beings compare, you know, so if they look at them and think they're not as bad as them, it makes them feel better, you know, and we point the finger in that direction. So you mentioned something there as well, and kind of get a wee bit of understand there's a lot of kind of underlying issues, you know, you find out maybe when people come into recovery, certainly for myself and stuff like that. So James, is there a correlation between trauma and addiction, do you find?
Absolutely. If you look at the evidence on it, the relationship between trauma and people who end up in addiction is breathtaking, Eddie. And that's not an excuse for a poor me, or because people who are traumatised or and drug addicts, they don't like the poor me isn't good for them. Yeah. Because you're trying to get them into taking responsibility for their own healing journey. But the trauma and the inability to access what you need to do in regards to taking responsibility needs real wraparound support. Yep. So, for example, I've got a diagnosis of, I was diagnosed with PTSD when I went into treatment. I didn't even know I had trauma. Yeah. I was like, and I thought trauma was just people who had went to war.
So did that.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah. I thought it was somebody who'd went to war and seen people getting blown up and their friends shot, and it never occurred to me that the environment that I was experiencing growing up at times was my war zone. Yeah. And that unpredictable environment shaped my nervous system in a way that didn't meet social expectations of behaviour. When I went to school and I stabbed my pencil into a page, or was acting the class clown, or wasn't listening because I was tuned out, and I had no idea that my brain was doing that automatically, because trauma plays into the autonomic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system, the word autonomic means it's automatic. Yeah. And I would be doing this, unconscious of this, and I used to dissociate in class a lot. For example, in school, and the teachers would write on my report cards that I didn't listen, that my head was always out the window. And I found out through, obviously, assessment, because they'd done a trauma assessment with me when I was in treatment, and worked with a trauma therapist and done EMDR, and I had this worksheet, and I was just like, I've been dissociating for as a wee boy. I was saying things like, do you ever read a book and you forget what the last 2 pages were and you have to go back and do it again? Yep. Because something would trigger your memory. And with trauma, if you've got a traumatic memory and it was too big for you to bear, then the brain can't abide by it, so it needs to find a way to cope, so it tunes out. Yeah. And it just goes blank. And my pals used to do that with me as well. You're doing that thing. And people would say I was ignorant, I didn't listen, all that stuff. And I wasn't, mate. I had a traumatised brain and I didn't know. And one of the other variables that's misunderstood in the relationship between trauma and addiction as well is the lack of relational support. So it isn't, everybody agrees, Eddie, if you look at the adverse childhood experience study, and there's only 10 on it, and so it's limited because there's more than 10 childhood adversities. Poverty isn't on it, for example. That's a trauma for a child growing up in poverty, because the evidence shows that if you've got a stressed mother who's living in poverty, doesn't know where the next meals are coming from, she's got 4 wee bits away and she's trying to feed. The father might be drinking all the money or drugging, all the money, or he might not even just be contributing at all and is totally off the scene, then that puts the mother under stress. And by definition, if you've got a stressed mother, you've got stressed children.
Yes.
Because of the way the nervous system works in relationship to other people around about you. And that impacts you in regards to how you express your emotions, how you express what's going on in your life. The last thing a child wants to do is add to the stress of a mother. So they might keep everything to themselves. So what I'm saying is, it's not that bad things are happening to Waynes. That everybody agrees on, that no Wayne should be sexually abused, no Wayne should be physically beaten, no Wayne should be belittled or put down, no Wayne should be experiencing poverty, no Wayne should experience the death of a parent, no Wayne should be having parents in the prison system. But and everybody's unanimous and agrees that that shouldn't happen to Waynes. Wayne shouldn't experience that. That's no fair. They didn't ask for it. If you're healthy, you'll look at it that way. But nobody talks about the things that should have happened that didn't, Eddie. And the things that should have happened that didn't was access to safe, stable, emotionally available, consistent adult caregivers. And this is why the education system's dead important, because Waynes need to go to school so they could get the teacher that's able to provide that, or good social workers, or good youth workers, which is back to the relational wealth again, Eddie. And it harks back to this as well when you think about it this way. If you've got all this stuff that happened to you when you were young that shouldn't have happened, and then it does happen when you're an adult, you go into recovery and you experience relational wealth, and people are sharing for their own experience, visiting their own vulnerability, because that's what trauma is, flight from vulnerability. You go into a recovery meeting, even Joe Bloggs in the street, I would challenge, go and sit in the back of a meeting, a AA or NA or Cocaine Anonymous, and just sit at the back of the room and just listen, and you'll be struck by the depth of honesty and the ability for people to access their vulnerability. And it's because they feel safe, Eddie. And that's, why is that so cathartic and healing for people? Because that's usually what was missing in the first place. And they've never really had that. And then they go into a room where people are talking about their feelings, how they felt, and more importantly, what they're doing about it in regards to the recovery journey. So the relationship between trauma and addiction is, mate, it's off the scale. The research evidence on it is unanimous. And even, for example, heroin addiction. Heroin's the strongest painkiller on the planet. So that implies that the person's in deep-rooted pain. And the evidence shows that people who end up opiate addicts or heroin addicts are among the most traumatised. And that's been my experience also, Eddie, sponsoring people who are alcoholics, cocaine addicts, marijuana addicts, and opiate addicts. And my experience is working across the different spectrums of drug use, is the opiate addicts are the most traumatised people I've worked with.
And can I go back a wee bit there, James? You're speaking about as a child with trauma that you didn't know about and behaving in a certain way, you get punished for it. You know, as a young man, behaving in that way due to that, you get punished for it, prisons, etc. And then we're going back to the kind of judgment in society on what addicts, as we see in the streets and stuff like that, and they're getting punished for it, for behaving in that way. And never having that kind of intervention throughout that time for somebody to explain some of the stuff we're speaking about here regarding their addiction and their kind of trauma as well. So how has your own healing journey been helped by the recovery community you're in? You've touched on it a bit there, haven't you? So what's the kind of main things, James, that you needed? You, in hindsight, you can see that you needed when you arrived in recovery and what you've been given by support others.
Anonymity, which plays into safety. So if you're in a room, or what's said in the room stays in the room. But And honesty, Eddie. Honesty. I needed taught how to live honestly, because I was so entrenched in patterns of dishonesty. Like even the stories I told myself, I'm not talking about shoplifting or stealing, that type of dishonesty. I'm talking about how you talk to yourself. And I needed the honesty of other people. And for me to be able to identify with that, as this is the way to go. Because, as you know, Eddie, as a person who's been about this field for a while, that most of the people I know who go back out and relapse is behind dishonesty.
Yeah.
On some level, they're telling themselves a story that they can get away with this or they can do that, and they believe a lie again. Because I remember asking the guy that took me through the 12 steps, why does the 12-step programme ask you to live a life? Doesn't he soft sell it, by the way? Recovery asks a lot of you, Eddie, you know. I says, why does it ask you to live a life of rigorous honesty? Do you know what he says to me? Because it's all the wee lies that take you back to the big lie, James.
Yeah.
And the big lie is that you think you'll be able to control this again. And the truth of your experience is that there's no control. But if you believe that lie and you act on it and you run into it, the truth is there's no control because of the physical aspect of this condition.
Yeah. And
your life becomes a living hell again. And see the amount of people I've seen that happening to, Eddie. I had somebody not that long ago say to me, we're kind of having a discussion about peer reviews, and he's academic, and he was saying to me, there's lots of peer reviews that say that 12 steps this. He was talking about the negative aspects of it, right?
Okay.
And he was talking to me, there's negative aspects of any area you go to, Eddie, and there's no perfect model out there. Everybody's claiming progress at the end of the day, and he was talking about peer reviews, and I said, I've done my own peer review. And he said, what do you mean? And I've sat in meetings for nearly 20 years, listening to my peers. I went, and you learn stuff. If you sit in rooms listening to thousands of hours of people's experience, Eddie, because that's what you're listening to, you will find out what works, what doesn't work, what's causing people to derail their recovery, why is people not growing in certain areas of their life, why are people stuck and they're still looking? Why can people not get off their script even though they're really trying hard? All that stuff. That's a peer review.
Yeah.
It's almost as if some of these academics think that we aren't clever enough to be looking at evidence bases. And you're like, what more evidence do I need?
Yeah.
I'm sitting in front of the people that you study. Longer than you ever will. I live in the community, and I also live out in the professional sphere as well, and navigate different types of relationships.
And sometimes through that, the biggest lessons aren't always learned by the people who's doing well or by that. It's about the people who have went back out, James, isn't it? And come back in and kind of shared their experience again, of what led up to that and what happens back out there. You know, I've learned so much of
see that
people.
Collective experience, Eddie, you learn so much with it, but also the 12-step model that I work, and I know there's different models out there, and I don't deal at lots of recovery meetings anymore. I'll go to meetings, I basically go to meetings to find people to take through the steps. So in my free time, I'll sit down and I'll do 12-step work, because that's the 12-step. The 12 carrying the message is taking people through the programme for me, and that's what I was taught in recovery. And it actually says it in the on the headline page in the 12-step in the big book Alcoholics Anonymous. The 12-step is the statement at the top of the chapter says working with others. Yeah, that's the 12-step, working with others. And there's no other model that I know. For example, right away when you go into recovery, because it's everything's paradox. So people say, I'm not powerless. And it's like, it only mentions powerlessness once in the first step, but it talks about your powerless area addiction, and it's regards to the physical aspect of it. You've not got power of that. When I pick up, Eddie, I immediately access loss of power because I've no control. I just completely lose control. I've never drank one anything in my life, Eddie.
Yeah. And your experience shows you that.
That's my evidence. Yeah. My evidence is my own lived experience. And I know everybody isn't like that.
Yeah.
And I don't project it onto other people as well. But I work with lots of people who are like that, who want to know what the solution is to that. And the way I work with them is this is the framework, this is the toolkit. And my job is somebody, and I don't even like the word sponsor, Eddie, because it implies hierarchy.
Yeah.
But I'm the guy that's going to teach you. It's the whole of 12-step recovery is an equal process.
Totally.
So, for example, if I'm taking somebody through step 1, paradoxically, he's working step 12 because he's taking me through step 1.
Yeah.
That's how it works, Eddie.
Yeah.
And he's working step 12 because he's carrying the message to me. And that's why when you're going through the steps with a sponsor, you're getting some done off it.
Yeah.
Because it's two people in relational connection who are on a healing journey together. And that for me is simple. Really simple, Eddie. It is a really complex problem, as you know. But the solution to it's simple, but no easy.
Aye.
It's no easy because healing's messy, Eddie, as you know. And people need support. They absolutely do, and they need relational support. And the beauty of early recovery for me was I could get up of a day and aim myself into a meeting. Like I needed lots of meetings in the early days. And no matter what was going on, I could say, get the way to find it. I could go to a meeting at 8 o'clock at night. I could go to one when I was unemployed. I could go to one at 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And I could stagger meetings through the day and I'd get through a day and I hadn't touched anything. I'd be like, done it, I've made it. And if you've not got that, Eddie, and how does systems replicate that?
You can't. It's that thing as well you're speaking about there, James, and I know we're a wee bit hanging me for time now, but it's so important that early doors recovery to build that foundation, isn't it? You know, that first few years, I would say, is so important that you've got that open-mindedness to get to the meetings daily if need be, follow the kind of suggestions, you know, get involved in a group, do a bit of service, find a sponsor, go through the programme.
Recovery puts you to use right away.
Yeah, totally.
You go to a meeting and
you feel useful though as well, don't you?
Join a group and get a job.
Yeah.
Put the chairs out, set up the meeting, make the tea for people. Like people who have been told you'll never amount to nothing, you're no use to anybody. What's the first thing you do with somebody who's got that internal world? Put them to use, Eddie.
Of course.
You can help that guy. How can I help him? Because you're 3 days in recovery now.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get a day.
He's getting 8 days.
He's not looking at me at the time I've got and think, because that's too far away from him. He looks at the newcomer and says, how did you get a week? And it's trying to get, like, it's hard to quantify it, Eddie, the magic that happens in these spaces. It's unbelievable. I've seen the dead get up and walk again, Eddie. And I'm one of the people myself. But the blessing is, for me, is I get to witness people recreating their life. And I've played a small part in it. I'm not taking the credit for it, because my credit belongs to me because I showed up to help you. That's the bit I do.
Yeah.
You've got to do your own work. You've got to do your own digging. And for me, recovery's an attitude. Eddie, and the attitude's this: what do I have to do?
Yeah.
And then it's action in it, then it's doing it. And there's nobody I know in solid recovery who will ever give you a bum steer. They will never give you a course of action that points your life down the way. They'll always give you their own experience on the actions they took that helped recreate their life. And because you've got that exposure to all different people's experiences, you hear your whole story, Eddie.
Yeah.
Because when I first came into recovery, somebody said, if you hang about in here long enough, you'll hear your story, right? Now, that took me years to realise what they meant. Because I'm like, I've never heard my story yet. Because I've got a mind that looks for the differences, Eddie. That's the way my head's set up.
Yeah.
But I had this epiphany one day where I realised, collectively, through listening to all different experiences, I've heard my whole story, Eddie. I have. I've heard the whole thing. But it took me years to wake up to it.
Yeah. And that's the thing in recovery as well, you know, we always speak about the process of it, don't you? There's no quick way to do this, James. I don't know. There's
Work.
Yeah.
Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, Eddie, but it'll only materialise if you're doing the work. You've got to do your work. Don't sit about the rooms of recovery and expect to get recovery through osmosis. Like just because you're sitting next to a guy who knows his stuff and has got experience and a good knowledge on what he's talking about, doesn't mean that you're going to absorb that into your own experience. You've got to do your own work. But if you're not exposed to that psychosocial support or relational wealth, as I call it, if you're not exposed to that, then you're not going to experience it, Eddie.
No, totally. So just to kind of round it up, if there's MD listening to your show, James, you know who's sitting in that place or maybe kind of struggling or challenged with addiction at this point and stuff, what's some of the best practices that somebody who's want to come into recovery can get involved in? Where to go? What's the best way to get help? Is it go to services? Is it come to the fellowship? What would you advise somebody just now?
Well, it depends on the individual. I think services need to realise, for example, some people need medically detoxed, Eddie, and they maybe need to go to a rehab to get an even chance to access that.
Yeah.
And some people are so wounded and been so entrenched in the addiction for so long, the expectation that they'll access it out in the communities, I wouldn't say it's unreachable, I'd say it's more difficult.
Yeah.
And so services need to see their role in how they pivot people into the 12-step communities. And I've seen it, Eddie. I've seen services who totally get that, because it makes the services work easier as well, because then you've not got people who are dependent on your service. If you can signpost somebody into recovery and they become non-dependent on systems and services and start going out and holding down jobs, and why would you not want that? Eddie, so the challenge becomes, how do we join services up with getting people through the doors of recovery? And for people listening who don't understand that, and it is difficult when you're living with somebody who's caught up in addiction, go and listen to people who've solved the problem, Eddie. Go into a meeting of recovery.
Yeah.
Even if you're just a family member wondering, how do I help my son? I deal with family members all the time. Go in and sit in a meeting and tell people why you're there. I need to understand this. I'm trying to help my son. And you'll get good guidance. You'll get good you'll get people's experience. You've only just got an opinion.
Yeah.
You'll get experience on it. And you know the difference between experience and opinion, Eddie.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between the two of them. And if they can do that, they will be able to form better solutions in regards to how they support them, but also as well, Eddie, how they support themselves.
Yeah.
Because some people don't want to get into recovery. They're so comfortable in the chaos, or they aren't ready to stop. Then it becomes about, how do you as a family member look after yourself?
Yeah.
And emotionally, psychologically, because it's probably it's not my experience. I've got 3 children, Eddie, and it's not my experience that I've watched any of my children navigating addiction. I've got family members who have, and it's agony, and it's one of the feelings that it's hard to even put into words, because it wouldn't even do it justice. In fact, I sent money to a charity there who supported one of my family members, and I done I do it all the time. I learned in recovery about altruism and selfless practice, and that's what recovery is. It's a selfless practice. We don't get paid for this. We do this for free. I take folk through the recovery process for free. I give up my own time to do it, and that's part of the practice that I was taught today, which sustains my recovery as well.
There is one last bit, so I asked you to think earlier on a significant song throughout your life and why that's so significant to you. So what song did you choose?
I love Hotel California.
Okay. What was the reason behind that?
Just some of the lyrics in it, like what it means to me. Like the lyric in Hotel California, it says, you can check in any time you like, but you can never leave. And that kind of reminds me the addiction, that I had checked into something that I wasn't able to leave.
Yeah.
And I got the support and the guidance, obviously, to show me how to leave it. But on my own devices, under my own steam, I wasn't able to leave it, Eddie. So that song speaks to me. Like you've just that lyric, you can check in.
Yeah.
Because that's what addiction's like. You've checked in before you know it. It's got you. You're in its grip and you're like, how do I get out of this? I can't leave this. And I'm trying to leave this. And music speaks to that, doesn't it?
Brilliant, man. Brilliant, James. Thank you so much for coming on and listening up today, and thanks for your friendship, James, over the years and your help over the years. Thank you.
Thanks,